So the Federal Reserve just broke the bounce on Tesla stock. Now, for those of you guys that aren't caught up, recently we had Tesla have their earnings, and it was a pretty poor earnings with poor forward guidance, in which we saw Tesla hit this price level of $180. And a lot of individuals were saying that this was the bottom for Tesla and this was the best time to buy. But on my end, I ended up saying that I wasn't pulling the trigger for Tesla. I said I wanted to go ahead and wait until we get the decision on monetary policy, but more importantly, hear the forward guidance on monetary policy. And boy, was this a pretty bad meeting. We're seeing Tesla stock now start to get rejected off of this little bounce that it was having, and as well at the same time we're seeing the S&P 500 pretty much start falling down as well. Now, one of the main reasons why the markets are reacting negatively to this meeting is because we got the news that Jerome Powell from the Federal Reserve said that March rate cuts are very unlikely. And if you guys recall to what I said in my last video, I said that this was going to be a big driver for the direction for the markets. And if we hear that rate cuts in March were going to be unlikely, well, this was going to go ahead and stomp out a lot of the optimism for the markets, but it actually gets a bit worse because today we got news that New York Community Bancorp has plunged downwards and is cutting their dividend. And to give you an image, this is how that looks. Now, I know some of you guys may be wondering, well, what does this bank have to do with anything? Well, here's the thing, right? This bank in particularly that's pretty much capitulating was one of the banks that purchased the assets from one of the banks that failed the last time we had a banking crisis. And so technically we're kind of having this banking crisis 2.0, but it actually starts to get worse because the Bank Term Funding Program, which was created to go ahead and stop banking crises from happening by making additional funding available to these financial institutions, well, guess what? This actual program, we just got news, is actually going to cease to exist in just a few weeks. In fact, we got the announcement that it is ending on March 11th. So we're pretty much at this place where we're seeing banks pretty much start to fall downwards, and the systems put in place to stop that from happening are no longer going to be available. But on top of that, when we go ahead and look at some of the wording from the statements today in today's decision and meeting, interestingly enough, we see this section crossed out saying that the United States banking system is sound and resilient. So basically, the Federal Reserve is no longer acknowledging that the banking system is sound and resilient. So this all together is pretty much creating this recipe for disaster. So this is why in my last video I said that I wasn't pulling the trigger to go ahead and buy more shares of Tesla, and I wanted to wait for the data to come out. And I said that I don't necessarily believe that the bottom was in. Now, of course, you guys are free to do whatever you see value in. You should never trade or invest based on anyone else's opinion, and the purpose of these videos is just simply to go ahead and provide my perspective and what I'm doing in regards to the overall markets. And so I want to go ahead and talk about what I see happening going forward in regards to Tesla and the overall market. So we're going to go ahead and hop into my laptop in just a brief moment, but just a friendly reminder that if you have not done so already, consider tapping that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any future video. And one of the things I often get hate on this channel is I'm not one of those individuals that constantly tries to spew up any information to make this bullish video for Tesla. I call it as it is, right? When I say things are looking pretty bearish, yes, I don't get that many views, but I like to hold that integrity. I don't want to be like any of those other channels where pretty much Elon Musk makes a joke and they spin it as a positive thing for Tesla going to the moon. I mean, Elon Musk could fart and these channels will say, well, oh my gosh, Tesla's going to go to the moon because of this and that, right? It's ridiculous. And so, I try to keep it as authentic and as unbiased. Yes, I still have a long-term position to Tesla. I'm not selling it. I'm just simply not buying anymore at this current state. But I want to go ahead and, as I said, hop into my laptop and go ahead and talk about what I see happening going forward. Alrighty, so we are officially in my laptop taking a look at Tesla stock, and as promised, I want to go ahead and provide my outlook for Tesla stock moving forward and when I plan to add more shares in my long-term portfolio. Again, not something you have to follow. I always always preach that you should only trade and invest in whatever you see value, but this is what I'm seeing with Tesla stock right now. Tesla stock has been causing a lot of frustration with a lot of the long-term bulls, and it makes sense, especially because it's been falling down pretty much day after day. In fact, I made a video back on the 20th saying that, I think this is a top for Tesla for quite some time, and of course that video got a negative reaction, but part of the reason was I was saying that fundamentally, also from a macro perspective and tying in a technical perspective, things were looking pretty bad for Tesla. I mean, it was getting close to this descending trend line, which has pretty much been an area of rejection for Tesla since 2021. So pretty much the last 3 years, every single time Tesla got close to this area, it pretty much started falling down. Now, again, do stocks have to adhere to any squiggly lines on the chart? Absolutely not. But when you layer in technical analysis with fundamental analysis and also the macroeconomic environment, well, you kind of get a better clue of what's going on. And of course, a lot of individuals didn't like Tesla stock falling down. And then when Tesla stock hit 180, a lot of people were kind of saying, buy the dip, this is the absolute bottom. While I said, hold on, wait, I want to go ahead and wait for some information. And here we are today, right? So we're still slightly above the bottom just by a few dollars, so we're kind of teetering around that area. But the area, or what I want us to kind of look at is the volume profile, which is right over here on the right. And we're at an area where there's a lot of volume relative to price, meaning that there's a lot of exchanging between buyers and sellers, and that's what causes pretty much sideways movements, consolidations. We see we're down, we're up, we're down, we're kind of up. So that's where we're at now. When we had that volume pocket or that low amount of volume relative to price, I said, if there's selling pressure, it's going to get amplified. That's exactly what we saw, right? We saw pretty much Tesla stock fall down. But the question is, well, where do you see Tesla stock moving forward? Now, again, I want to kind of put it out there that I don't have a crystal ball, though sometimes people joke about that on the channel. I don't. And I want to go ahead and outline my bear case and my bull case and what my action plan is to go ahead and add more shares into my long-term portfolio, because ultimately, although pretty much for the last month I've been covering Tesla stock and been pretty bearish on it, I'm still long-term bullish on Tesla for the long term. And so I do still have exposure to my long-term portfolio. I haven't been selling Tesla. As far as my trading account goes, I haven't been even trading Tesla. There's been a lot of other opportunities, which I've highlighted in the past, such as Nvidia was one of them, one of the trade ideas. Speaking about that, if you guys are interested in joining the Push and Profit private group, there is a coupon code. Simply type in Feb, short for February, and hit apply. And for the first month, it's only $12 right there. So a huge, major discount to join the Push and Profit private group, where you have access to my daily briefings, where every single day the markets are open, I talk about my views on the overall markets, as well as just trade ideas. For example, let me highlight a conversation that we had in the private chat. I mentioned the trade idea back in January 18th about pretty much not shorting FedEx and UPS, but doing vertical spreads and pretty much selling calls. As I said, the upside was limited, and whoever took those trades, I mean, let's go ahead and take a look at UPS real briefly. I mean, UPS has been falling downwards. It's been a rock, and I talked about this back in January 18th, saying I think the upside is limited from a macro perspective, as I often kind of look at UPS and FedEx as barometers for the economy. And look, a lot of people, they're not spending and ordering packages, and it reflects, especially when you see the news. We had UPS cutting 12,000 jobs just after reaching the union deal, which I don't know if you guys are familiar, but not too long ago, UPS was offering these union deals of six-figure incomes for their drivers, which, is always great. I salute that. But now we're at a point where the macro demand isn't there, and they're having to cut some of their workforce. And so those are some of the trade ideas I share within the Push and Profit private group, just to kind of give you guys an idea. If you guys are interested, use that coupon code before it does expire. It is coupon code FEB. It's going to be in the comment section and also in the description of this video. But back to Tesla, right? So one of the things is, again, we're teetering towards the low of this 180. We're at this area where there's a lot of volume relative to price. if we do indeed see more selling pressure, well, we could potentially see Tesla fall back down into an area with little volume relative to price, and where we could potentially fill this gap right around over here of this 145 area. And if we do indeed fall down to that area, that's where I would like to add more shares and scoop up more shares of Tesla. As I always say, it's not about just buying the dip. Everyone screams buy the dip, but the dip can always just get dippier. And so I try to wait for that confirmation of an uptrend. And yeah, we had a little bit of a move, but it hasn't been a confirmation of an uptrend. And so that's why I'm still waiting out. We could possibly fall down even further. And if we do, I'm going to be eyeing that 145 area. But that's the bear case, right? Some individuals may say, Justin, you're crazy. It's not going to fall down. And probably it won't, right? Because again, I don't have a crystal ball. So what is the bull case? Well, the bull case is, again, as I've shared before, right? Let me go ahead and actually, let's go to like maybe a 1 hour time frame. So one of the things I've shared before is that right over here, there is a sliver of kind of a pocket relative to volume, from a volume relative to price perspective. And we could definitely, if there is some buying pressure, push upwards. But I'm looking to see if we break around that 205 area. If we do in fact break above that like 204, 205 area and land right over here, that's going to give me that confirmation of, okay, the uptrend is here and I'll go ahead and add more shares. Now, is that terrible that I didn't buy it at the absolute bottom if it did indeed start going up? No, right? It's just a few percentage points. It's not something that's crazy. You're not going to time the market perfectly. Again, it's time in the market. It's not about timing the market, but also I don't just like to buy every single dip. It's not like I want to buy every single sale. I want to wait for a good deal. And so that's pretty much what I'm looking for in regards to Tesla. Now, Tesla, pretty interesting. First of all, I want to highlight why we could possibly have that bull move, actually, right? So we know that the Fed today in their meeting kind of confirmed that, or not confirmed, but reiterated or mentioned that the cuts on March are unlikely, right? And so that's still something that's causing some sour sentiment for the markets. But at the same time, we're seeing a lot of kind of pain take place in the financial system, and we're seeing banking pretty much get hurt pretty bad. And so if this continues, well, we could hear the Fed easily pull back on their statements of March cuts and end up cutting in March. And that will, of course, provide some of that bullish catalyst force that we need for the overall markets in Tesla. But even if that doesn't happen, one thing I want to point out is that when you look at March, the meeting is March 20th. The next meeting would be in April 30th or May 1st, right? Which is literally just, I don't know if it's like what, like less than 25 days away. So it's not too far off. And so even if we don't get cuts in March, I believe that we're most certainly going to get the cuts in either April 30th or May 1st, depending on when the meeting is. Now, yes, I have called out pretty much exactly what the Fed has done in every single meeting since the last 12 meetings. Does that mean I'm going to get it right for the next ones? Absolutely not. Again, I don't have a crystal ball, but the idea is that unless something breaks, unless we have a black swan and the banking system gets even worse, then we get the cuts in March, and that's going to provide that bullish outlook for the markets. But if we don't, it's not the end of the world, as pretty much April, May is right around the corner from the next meeting, and I think that's more likely where we are going to get those cuts, and that's where we're going to see kind of those bullish moves take place. Now, something else pretty interesting that it's not that notable, but I just thought it was pretty interesting that I wanted to share. Gary Black, who's a fund manager, very popular on X.com, he recently did this tweet yesterday saying that, interestingly, Tesla has significantly underperformed NDX, which is the NASDAQ index, and XPX, which is the S&P 500 index, for 3 years now. So Tesla is down 27% in the last 3 years. The NASDAQ is up 35%. The SPY is up 33%, and he said that Tesla bulls keep pushing me to increase my estimates, right? So he's getting a lot of pressure, people saying, no, Tesla should be valued way more, right, than it currently is, or what their projections are going forward. And he mentions that we as a group have to look at ourselves in a collective mirror and admit that we've been way too optimistic in the past 3 years and adjust accordingly rather than continuously talk up the stock. And so, I definitely applaud Gary Black for, kind of now saying this, although I've been saying this for a while, but he's been one of the biggest bulls on Tesla. And we're starting to hear even him say, hey, guys, we may have been a little too optimistic, right? And so I definitely believe that there's a bit of a cult, or I don't like to say cult, but rather a lot of zealotry in regards to Tesla. There's been a lot of individuals who've been kind of just looking at what Elon Musk is doing in robotics and AI and kind of saying, well, this is going to happen and this is going to make Tesla go up. And I do agree. That's why I'm bullish on Tesla in the long term, right? I don't want anyone to get confused on me being bearish in the short term. I'm bullish in the long term, but the problem is we still don't have FSD. It's been promised year after year after year, and we've gotten closer. And I do believe Tesla is the closest. That's why I'm still bullish. But we still haven't gotten that. And so you can't underwrite that into the price for Tesla. Right now, you can't really underwrite that. All you could do is really see what it's doing with its car sales and with charging and a few other areas that don't make up a large portion of the company's revenues, as well as robotics, right? We saw Optimus folding some clothes, but then it was kind of revealed that, hey, it's not him actually doing it by just learning. It's actually someone controlling him, but in the future, right? And so, yeah, there's a lot of promising ideas with Tesla, but we're not there yet. And so I am bullish, but again, I do believe there's been a lot of optimism, too much optimism, and we kind of had to humble ourselves. Now, I know there's going to be some individuals saying, you're wrong, guess what? I'm just going to buy more shares and you're going to lose out. And by all means, again, do whatever you see value in. But for me personally, this is what I'm seeing with Tesla. Again, want to wait for that confirmation. Are we going to continue going up and finally break up to the upside? I don't think it's likely. Of course, I could be wrong. Again, I'm not perfect. And if it does happen, I'll be gladly happy to buy some more shares and finally add into my long-term position. But I still believe we're in a challenging period. And again, we're getting closer to that time where we had the first financial crisis, or not the first financial crisis, the last time we had the banking crisis last year. So it's kind of funny that's happening almost exactly a year later. And so that's something that's going to be interesting that we're going to want to see further develop. But with that said, let me know in the comment section down below, what are your thoughts for Tesla stock, both in the short term and in the long term. And also if you have any other thoughts for Tesla stock, any other comments, I'll be happy to see them. Of course, before you guys go, also consider watching this next video right over here. And I'll see you guys on that next video. Take care, guys.